Okay, hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, today, 22nd of October. This time right now is 6:05 p.m. And well, today we are going to speak about something specifically which is extremely important. Is how does it works, the court in Spain? How do I have access to courts in Spain? What are the costs in Spain? What kind of function it gives to parties in order to pay costs, or in case that you win a case, how is this going to be refunded to you? We will speak about those topics and many other ones, and of course, what are the difference between going to, like, for example, a civil court or criminal court, or what are the steps before going to court? Today, we have a special guest, as always. Every weekly informative webinars that we have, we invite those experts and expertise, in this case in courts. Two barristers is Mr. Ignacio Pellicer, expert barrister in Spain. He's got more than 15 years experience on court, and of course out of court, on property issues, taxes. But on court, the topic that we're going to speak today is a real expert on civil law, on criminal law, and international law. Good afternoon, Ignacio.
Hello, good afternoon, Pedro. Can you hear me properly?
Okay, yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And our special also guest today is also Michael Davies. He is an abogado and a barrister. He works in all Spain, and specifically, he works and have his offices in the south of Spain, in Andalusia. He's an expert, abogado, barrister, I would say more than 15 years, or 20 years of experience in Spain, and courts and out of courts, on property and inheritance and wills, and of course on the topics of litigation that we are talking today. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Pedro. Hello, Ignacio. Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, well, thank you both of you for coming, and thank you for all the people which is joining us right now and listening to us this time, or whenever they are going to be able to see this video that we are making. This first question, of course, the topic today is we are going to speak about how does the courts in Spain works. It's a big issue. We cannot, of course, talk about everything, but of course, we would like to introduce with these two experts, with Ignacio and Michael, what recommendations or what situation they will be able to recommend potential people and situations. What will be the process in order to follow the steps in order to have correctly an access to justice? And well, before asking anyone to have access to justice, in some ways there are out of court legal notification, out of court claims, which are highly important before going to court. And Michael, of course, you may be able to give us a brief summary of this really important step before going to court, in order to on a claim, or in order to notify some parties. What would you recommend? What is really the process on this?
Hello, Pedro. Okay, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Davies. I'm a Spanish lawyer. I've been in practice for 25 years. We work down here in Andalusia. Ignacio and Pedro, I think you're both up in the Valencia region, haven't you? You've got all the offices, many offices up in the Valencia region. I'd like to have a quick, maybe 5 minutes, just to explain how to avoid going to court in Spain. The main reasons that people come to see us are in relation to the purchase of properties, the making of Spanish wills, and sometimes, unfortunately, for divorce cases as well. In relation to the purchase of Spanish properties, the way to keep out of court is very simple. You need to use a good lawyer to handle the purchase for you. If you have a good lawyer to handle the purchase, it will be very, very rare for you to end up in court over a property transaction in Spain. I think it's important to stress this because as we're going to talk about court cases today, I don't want people to think that it's like a normal thing. I mean, it happens very, very exceptionally. And normally it happens to clients that haven't actually used a qualified lawyer to deal with their initial transaction. In other words, so basically the purchase of property in Spain is absolutely safe if it is done correctly. The same goes for wills. In other words, if you want to avoid a court case in relation to an inheritance in Spain, the key is to go and see a professional advisor, to a professional lawyer that deals with the will for you. And with that, you will avoid a court case. With marriage, it's a bit more difficult because obviously the key to avoiding divorce there is to choose your partner correctly, which isn't that easy. Okay, having gone through that, what to do to prepare for a court case? Well, there is some initial legwork that is very, very important before we jump into the court case. And for that, what I'd recommend is you go and see the barrister, and either the barrister or a solicitor in their office will help you through all the different paperwork that you need to gather and different notifications that have to be done. Because I can't stress how important it is, and Ignacio, who's an absolute expert in court work in Spain, will confirm this, how important it is to be able to show the judge that you have tried to settle the case without going to the courts beforehand. Very important. Why? Because it's very important to the judge to realize that you don't want to waste their time, because he will be the one at the end of the court case that will assign the costs of the procedure. And he may ask the parties to share them, or he may make one of the parties pay all the cost. And those amounts can be quite heavy. So we need to make some notifications. So what we always do is initially, if you have a claim against someone, you send them a friendly letter, then you send them a letter with recorded delivery, and finally you should send them a thing called either a burofax or a document via the notary, because you need to be able to prove not only that you have sent a letter to the other party, but also you need some way of proving what the content of that letter has been. And we do that through either a burofax or a communication via the notary, who will go around and deliver the document in person. Regarding the court procedures, in Spain, mediation is not as common as it is in the UK. But if you go to a solicitor, a sensible solicitor or barrister, he will explain to you the enormous difference in cost, depending on whether you can do an amicable divorce or a contentious divorce. It is very, very different, both in costs and in the time scale. And now what I will do is pass you through to the real expert in the fields of litigation. I have dealt with Ignacio many, many times over the last 15 years or 16 years, I think, Ignacio, that we've been dealing with court cases together, because in our firm, first, we only work in the Andalusia region. And as far as litigation, we only handle litigation in relation to inheritance matters in our office. We specialize in that, and everything else we hand over to somebody that we consider more expert. In our case, it is Ignacio and Pedro sometimes as well, but they are experts in everything to do with litigation involving property transactions. They are also becoming experts as well now in divorce cases, and we've handled already quite a few together. So I think I'll pass you over to Ignacio. I'm going to watch as much as possible, see what I can learn today, and after that I'll have to leave because I have an appointment at 8 o'clock in the evening. People think that lawyers don't work hard, but I still have one appointment to go today. So I'm going to watch as much as possible, and then I will say goodbye.
Thank you, Michael.
Over to you,
okay.
Ignacio and Pedro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael. Okay, well, Ignacio, so as Michael has already said, I mean, in order to, whenever you speak with your barrister, your solicitor, and of course, a claim needs to be applied in an amicable way through a burofax or through the notary requirement. what happens if it's a negative answer, or the deal is, I mean, of course, at the end there is no agreement by parties? What is the recommendation? What is the following steps?
Okay, Pedro, thank you for the presentation. It is very important, as Michael stated, to say that what Michael has been talking about, property litigation, buying a property in Spain is safe, but sometimes we end up into situations where there are breach of contract, bankruptcy procedure, etc., off-plan property refunds that we've been dealing with recently. Back to the question, Pedro, you and Michael said, send in a burofax. Well, the first thing I think somebody will have a problem, will go to the lawyer, will seek independent legal advice, which is very, very important. Please note, people should always appoint an independent lawyer, especially for them to represent your interests. We've noticed that there are a lot of people in the past that unfortunately they dealt with the same lawyer who represents the builder or the agent, and then you will end up having a conflict of interest. So first thing, Pedro, you will end up going, if you have a problem, to a lawyer, independent lawyer, solicitor and barrister who can represent you in court, and you will explain the problem, and he will send a letter, which is the common way of them saying. You send a letter to the other party, trying to seek an independent agreement, right, between the two lawyers, trying to seek that agreement if possible. Now, Pedro, that doesn't work all the times. We all know that when it's about money, not always people are willing to settle out of court, Pedro, the first time. So you might send a letter and they might get back to you with a very sensible position, or probably they will be ready to go to court, Pedro. So the phase number one, in civil matters, because Pedro, I think you should explain now what type of procedures we could face. As Michael stated, from a civil law point of view, the letter is the first thing. So over to you, Pedro, with regards to that.
That's right. Of course, what you've said, I mean, in order to start this burofax or notary requirement, of course, we're talking about civil action. In order to start a civil action after this letter that you inform. Of course, there are different kinds of proceedings on different matters. If we're talking about civil issues and criminal issues, administrative, when someone wants to claim to a public institution, and also we have a special court for labor law. So apart from that, there is another kind of different courts, the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, the National Audiencia, which covers all the territory, and many courts in Spain. As this civil court has a specific territory in each, we call it partidos judiciales, which is not covers a province, but covers some part of the province, according to the population and accordingly of the structure that has been done. Apart from that, there are some courts also specialized on family matters, or the courts specialized on company matters, or the courts specialized on non-legal age people when it's below 18 years old and has done something, of course, wrong. And so there are different kinds and different of specialities and judges specialized on different subjects and matters. But in general, and we're talking about, of course, on civil cases and civil actions, before going to court is always a must start a legal notification, a contact with the other party in order to see if it's possibly have an amicable agreement. And okay, so once you, as a client of a law firm, you say at the end you confirm you have studied with your lawyer, with your solicitor, the case, and you understand this needs to be claimed. And it's also there is some you need to make some power of attorney. You need to contract or instruct someone in the court called procurador, and of course these arise costs. How does it work? How does it work this?
Right, good, Pedro. Let's put everybody into the picture. If we talk about civil law, as we said, you have a problem, you'll speak to your lawyer will just try to understand the situation, and hopefully will send a letter if the court case didn't start for the lawyers to try to reach an agreement. Now, it's very likely that probably the lawyer will send you to grand power of attorney. In Spain, what you need to do, there is no way you could deal with the court cases unless you appoint a barrister as yourself and a court runner. A court runner is a representative in court, private legal person who works for you and represents your interest on a daily basis in the courts. So they will represent the parties and is a contact between the lawyer, the client, and the court. And he's the one who delivers letters back and forth into your case, right? So your grand power of attorney, and then your lawyer will ask you to provide all paperwork to start a claim on your behalf. There is different type of claims, Pedro, here. We could be talking about minor claims, which is below 2,000 euros. You don't need a lawyer, you don't need a court runner. Okay, that's very important. You could go yourself to the courts and with a translator and then make the claim. We normally recommend that to do privately because that way you avoid spending money money-wise. So for minor claims up to 2,000, you're not obliged to have it and you might do it yourself. Below the 3,000 euros, from 0 to 3,000 euros, there is one minor claim courts, which you'll have to use a barrister and a court runner, right? So if you ever decide to go through them from 2,000 to 3,000 is one type of court, okay? And then you have another one, which is the normal general court case in Spain, okay? Which is the proper civil. You lodge the claim, and then they reply to you. There is a pre-trial hearing, there is a hearing, and there is a sentence. It seems pretty straightforward and easy, but we could be talking about an average of a year at least. It will depend on what jurisdiction you've got in your area. For example, there are different rules. You will send a letter to somebody in Galicia, well, therefore, you'll have to sue in the courts in Galicia, for example. Okay, we've got the problems, Pedro, as well about the jurisdiction. Probably you could comment later on about the international point of view here, whether somebody's in the UK wants to sue in Spain or somebody in Spain who wants to sue in the UK. That's important as well for you to consider it. And then after you have a sentence, you could go into the High Court in the province where you live, for example. We are in Alicante, it will be the Alicante High Court province, High Court. If you're in Almeria, it will be the High Court in Almeria City. Okay. After that, I will budget another roughly 9 months on that appeal. And then after that, there is an exceptional cases where it could go to Madrid. That will be the very last option you've got, and is into the High Court in Madrid, which is called Tribunal Supremo. Okay. These, from a civil point of view, are the basics courts that you will use if you need, if you are in a situation which you need protections from the court. Obviously, once you've got the sentence, you will have to enforce that sentence, and that needs to go back to the original court, which is probably if you start in Alicante, and enforce the sentence, depending on the solvency. If you're claiming for money, or if you're asking to an eviction order, or if you're asking for any other personal obligation, you could have a variety of timescale depending on different factors. For example, the courts, and for example, the person who you are starting the case against. Okay, that's from a civil point of view. I don't know, Pedro, if you want to comment now something about international point of view, the jurisdiction. Over to you, Pedro.
Well, at the end, thank you, Ignacio. I mean, of course, it's been very informative about international law. I mean, we work a lot with international cases that, of course, we need to see which is the jurisdiction, and the courts are, we call it, competent in order to solve that specific case in Spain, or should be done in a different country. So it's a must and very strategic situation where to start the claim, if it's in Spain or a different country, and of course, what law must be applied in that court case. Could be, for example, that we inform and we start a civil action in Spain, but we apply for a different law. Let's say, for example, UK law or French law on the court case in Spain. Can be done. Of course, international law it works on many subjects, and it's extremely important to have a really good knowledge about all the European Union acts regarding jurisdiction and which are the courts are competent in order to deal with some specific case, with some specific subject, and of course to be expert on which kind of law should be applied and should be proved, which is another thing that needs to be done in Spain. If you want to form and apply for a specific law outside of Spain, let's say, for example, British law, you need to prove that law, what that law says, and you need to certify that law in the courts in Spain, and you need to be very transparent and very clear on that. And that's extremely important. One thing that I would like to ask you, Ignacio, and before going to court, of course, before you entry in the court case, you need to instruct this to a barrister, you need to instruct the claim into a barrister, solicitor, and the court runner that you have set. And I assume that, of course, should be signed like a letter of engagement in order to show which are the fees that needs to be paid to the lawyer, to the barrister, or to the court runner. And I would like to ask you, what is the normal procedure on this, and what happens with those fees that are paid, and what happens with those fees, with the court fees, whenever we get a resolution in this case in a civil court in Spain? What happens when the judge says that the costs needs to be paid by the claimant or by the other party? How this works?
Yeah, very interesting question, Pedro. Yes, with regards to the legal cost, it works as follows. You employ a lawyer, and the lawyer should provide you a budget, and you will agree or not. If you agree, my recommendation is to sign the contract, so you're very clear, and the lawyer explains to you what is your procedure, how it's going to work. Obviously, nobody could guarantee you any result in life, but he will give you a very good picture of what is coming. You will sign a contract with him, which he will confirm how much money is going to cost you and the VAT, and how much will be the court runner. The court runner is run by a different law society with a different fee book. As the lawyer, we've got one guideline book as well. Then the lawyer will accommodate that claim. I will explain to you what are his fees. Now, we are private unless you've got legal aid lawyer. The legal aid lawyer will be granted by the state in case you cannot afford to pay a lawyer. Okay. Now, if you go into private lawyer, which is what most people do, then you just need to sign the contract, understand how much it costs, and then once you lodge the claim, depending on the sentence, you might have a reward on the legal cost. Is for you to agree with the lawyer how it's going to work. Normally, some people work on an hourly basis. Some people give you a lump sum money for the total. And some people might say, even if the legal costs are granted, is part of the extra bonus you might end up with. Okay. Basically, if you win the case or you lost the case, the situation is the fees according to the law society should be paid by the other party. That means that the judge will order for the other party to pay you the legal fees, or a minimum average of legal fees according to the law society. For example, you could agree a percentage, and then even if the other party lost and you get the fees, that money could go into that pot as well, according to your contract in your lawyer. So at the end of the day, is a private contract, Pedro. Important as well, there are legal fees on the first case. If you go into the High Court, it goes another fees. And if you go into the Supreme Court, you've got another fees. Again, there are basic standards of fee book guidelines. And that is like a compensation figure that the judge will order to the defendant to pay you as compensation. But that doesn't mean that that's the legal fees that you'll end up, because it's a private contract you've got with your lawyer.
So
okay,
it is really important to have a very transparent and described about the services that the barrister and the fees, how it's going to be paid, how much will be paid, or any condition about that. This is extremely important to clarify that and to sign a contract with your lawyer. Is that right?
Yes, it's basic, Pedro, because I always say it is quite important to have a great relationship between the lawyer and the client and work together. Because at the end of the day, the court case, you will end up winning or losing, whatever happens, but you're a team. If you don't work as a team, you know,
exactly.
As I always say, I'm here to help you, but you need to help me to help you. So, for example, if I need the invoices, if I need the evidence, if I need to call a surveyor, Pedro, we could talk later on about relevant cases and probably general advice we provide after so many years of experience. I mean, there is so many things on a daily basis, Pedro. We give advice to clients, like don't do this or do that, for example.
Exactly.
As you said, there is a way to prevent a court case. Okay. And that's through your lawyer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, of course, we as barristers, we always inform clients that as much and better proof that we have is better in order to put in writing and make a good strategy on a claim or on a contestation that we may have to contest to a claim that a client is receiving. So the proof is extremely important, and there are different kind of proof. My understanding is documents and witnesses, and of course you can make an interrogatory of parties. Of course, we're talking about civil cases. In this case, we're talking about civil cases. We have time, we will speak about a criminal case, how does it work, but on civil cases, which is what we are saying now, it's the proof that what you show in the court is needs to be specifically worked out by the lawyer and the client in order to have all the information in order to be able to have a good claim or a good contestation. Is that right?
That's correct, Pedro. It's very important to have everything very clear and be in your hands, Pedro.
Okay, and one of it, I mean, we spoke about one of the topics about these court fees that you have perfectly explained. So as you said, this like normal proceeding, which is have you made a claim, you receive a contestation, there is a hearing, pre-hearing, in order to see if parties have an agreement, propose the proof, is admitted the proof or not by the judge, and then there's another date, which will be the court hearing. And once we have the resolution, of course, there is time to inform the client. And sometimes, I assume there is something that we may not be agree on the resolution, and sometimes we agree because they have given us totally all of our petitions. Once the resolution is given to you, what are the next steps in case you want to make an appeal or the other party make an appeal?
Pedro, do you mean what are the options once the sentence being granted?
What is the options? What is the following steps in case that you are not totally agree or you don't agree what it says the resolution? Yeah.
Okay. Well, in a court case, what it will happen is, let's say you're asking for money. Let's say we've got cases about mortgage ground floor clauses. We've got money deposit refund, off-plan refund. Okay, we're talking about breach of contract. Let's say you've got a sentence that they award you and they say, you're right, they owe you this amount of money and they should pay you. The defendant has 20 working days to, and the plaintiff as well, to contest an appeal into the High Court. If it goes to the High Court, then you make the appeal, the other party makes the answer to your appeal, and it goes into the High Court. In that second level, Pedro, you don't need the witnesses, you don't need the surveyors, you don't need even to be present. Is a very internal work in the High Court. Okay, exactly the same if it goes later on into the High Court in Madrid. So that's basically what will happen. And the timing, unfortunately, it will not very fast, but it all depends on the workload that the court has in your city where you are now. Okay, so it really, really depends on the courts of your jurisdiction. Okay, that's important, Pedro.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, well, now you have said the off-plan. Let's introduce a video about off-plan, about a specific and real case, about what the claim is, how the claim started, and what was at the end the resolution.
When the police came to the house, we just didn't know why, and then we were told that the neighbour had denounced Jeff, and would we go down to the police station? Well, we'd no idea what to do, with no translator, with no solicitor.
The following day it was, wasn't it? I came straight to Pedro, didn't I?
I
bought the articles that I was given down at
𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸
to Pedro and said, can you help me out? He won the case for me.
And not only that, he kept us informed.
He kept us informed all the time. He kept us informed all the time, and also the advice he gave us was very good.
And told us not to worry.
And continually told us not to worry, but of course, everybody can tell you not to worry, but
you can't help
it doesn't mean you're not going to. It just means sometimes you worry more. But he did very well, did Pedro, and these people then,
appealed.
At the end of the court case, they appealed, and it went to the courts in Alicante then, and they threw it out. This man was asked, for some reason, I don't know why he was asking it, he was asking, what was it? That I should be given 9 months in prison,
and
pay a fine of 15,000 euros, all this, for doing nothing.
And we were lucky because we had German witnesses as well as Spanish witnesses on our behalf. So, you know, Pedro took all their statements, and he only took them the once, and then 5.5 years later he went to court, and they came, you know, and everything found out that she was lying and he was lying, and Joanna was absolutely brilliant as well. She, you know, for helping us with letters that were all in Spanish. So we used to just come up, not even have to see Pedro, we used to just come and see Joanne, and she would go through everything with us and, you know, interpret or write as a little note. She was both the
whole service was very good. Very good.
It was just, I'd recommend them to.
I would recommend him. I'd definitely recommend Pedro because he was very good. As a barrister, he was very good.
It's took all the stress away now, and I'd definitely recommend him because they were so helpful.
Okay, this was not a video really that I was speaking before, but of course, let's talk about this specific case, which I represented these clients, and of course, it was a situation extremely intense, extremely injustice, I would say. There were some other people lying, and this is what I understood, according to the proof that we had, and according, of course, I need to trust, and I trusted totally my clients, what they were saying. And we were defending and pushing all the time until the court hearing, which I say, it was intense, but of course, I gave as much as possible peace of mind to my clients. And at the end of the resolution was positive, and the other party appealed, and of course we received again a positive answer by the appeal court. So at the end, the results were absolutely fantastic.
Pedro, could I ask you here, because since we just jump into the criminal side, could you please explain how does it work? Because I think that video is an excellent video. And I was very, very impressed with the result. And I remember you telling me that you were pretty stressed because it was a very difficult situation. And actually, it was a criminal situation. Could you give us a little bit of advice here on the criminal? Okay. Yeah, how does it work?
Criminal, let's say criminal in a briefly and summary or abstract way. In the court, there are like two kinds of courts. It's like an investigation court, we call it juzgado de instrucción, which is like it makes some requirements in order to investigate, to get the proof about something that has happened on criminal issues. Someone has robbed, someone has made some cheatings, someone is avoiding on criminal things, or is doing like a big damage to some assets or person or violence. Or I mean, on this a specific court. I would say they are pretty fast, I would say. Of course, we are not today. This is not a seminar to speak about the efficiency of the courts, but I would say that it's pretty fast and diligent in many ways, I would say. And in order to get the proof, get declarations about parties, get declarations about witnesses, get informed a report about any valuation or any report they may say may be done by the police. And all this file is properly done by a judge, and of course it's involved in that file a prosecutor, and I would say most of the files on criminal issues, and at the end it creates like a file in order to see if someone can be accused, or if someone has made like a criminal fact that can be accused, and then that file goes to an accusation party, a prosecutor, in order to start accusing someone who has done a specific thing. At the end, that file goes to a different judge, to a different court, which is criminal court, which will be and will be making and creating the court hearing, the date of the hearing, where all the parties again goes to the hearing, all the reports and parties, all the documents are given to a different judge, which will be dealing and making a resolution according to the hearing that is being given through the investigation is being made before. So, having said that, it's extremely important that on the beginning, on the investigation court, you as a lawyer needs to put everything on the table. All the proof that you want to show needs to be required and needs to be showed on that time. Why? Because at the end, whenever it goes to a different court, in the criminal court, it will be extremely, I would say, difficult, or maybe, will not be able to be done, or will not be accepted or admitted in order to be. So extremely important to follow the steps, and on the investigation court, it is required and prove perfectly what you want to prove. And in some ways, if you, of course, I represent, and we represent different kinds of clients sometimes. We need to put on the table which is the strategic, which is the proof that we need to show, and which sometimes not. And well, criminal courts are, I would say that very efficient. I would say also about civil court, and but sometimes whenever it goes to a criminal court, I would say has passed a lot of years. And well, the satisfaction about people and clients starts to decrease in some ways, as it takes many time, I would say years, and if it's an appeal, some more time. But I would say, the guarantees of the accused as an innocent is perfectly guaranteed, and whoever is accusing someone at the end needs to prove, and perfectly prove, I would say, not just an indiciary accusation needs to be proved on the court hearing when someone has done anything.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Just with regards to advice I will make to people here, with regards to the criminal side, in Spain, obviously, if you have a problem, a lot of people will get to know the Guardia Civil or the local police station. Okay, there's a way to start the claim, or whenever you have a problem, you can report it to the police. That's how we start a criminal case. That works through the police, and it goes to the public prosecutor, and it goes his way. In a civil case, you need to lodge the claim through the courts, and it goes a different route. It's very, very important for people to understand the difference, okay? Because if you have a problem, it goes one way. If you have a claim, a civil claim, is with your petition through the courts. So, so I wanted to make very clear here, this as a different situation you might end up in Spain, even if you have a business, even if you have a personal life here as an individual, that's how it works. Now, different kind of advice, again, will be always trying to keep all the paperwork in a file. It's very important in a civil case for you to keep all the paperwork. You wouldn't believe how easy you make the case for us once we've got all the evidence. The difficulty, and I'm sure Pedro will agree, is when we don't have the evidence to prove the case. So one piece of advice you could take you today, try to have a very well organized file with documents. If we're talking about property transaction, always transfer receipts. Funny enough, thanks to this, Pedro, and we could just share the video that you mentioned, and it's very important for people to know from a civil point of view. For those who bought a property in the old days, you spend money and there was a breach of contract, or the developer were into a bankruptcy procedure, you didn't get your house and you didn't get your money. We've got a very last chance now because of the timing expiring action, which it will expire, I believe, I'm not sure if it's December, okay, because it's been postponed. It was the 7th of October, Pedro, but with the COVID, I think it's been extended 3 more months. The action that it was either 15 years from when it happened, or maximum 5 years from October 2015. Now, it's for those of you who bought a property, spent the money, didn't get the property. Now, very important, you keep the paperwork. Without the paperwork, it's very difficult for us to even be successful. And with the risk, Pedro, always, that we might end up, if we don't have enough evidence, we could be, the case could be dismissed by the courts, and the court will say, well, you need to pay the legal fees now of the defendants because you were not right. So you need to work out very well through your lawyer, very well, all the possible scenarios, A, B, and C, okay? Now, I know Juan Fran is going to share now with you a video about an off-plan property. We really like it then. Over to you, Juan Fran.
We're going back now to 2003. We started searching for a nice villa, all over Spain really, but we fell in love with the Costa Blanca.
Costa Blanca, particularly the Ōrba Valley. We loved it in the Ōrba Valley, and we went and looked at lots of properties, and we eventually found this builder in Sagra that was offering small villas in little groups around a pool that we thought would be really ideal for us.
2005, we'd given over about 90,000 euros, which was our life savings. And about, the years carried on. They said, the government have said you need a tunnel to take the water away, you need bridges, and there was excuse after excuse after excuse. And then we got suspicious. We went back to Spain, spoke to our original lawyer and said, look, we need to do something. The houses are definitely not going to be built. We keep going back to Sagra, the beautiful village, and there's nothing there. No foundations, no nothing. Every day we spoke about it, and we kept saying, how foolish. But we weren't foolish, because there was another 8 families. We weren't all foolish. It's just that it was so plausible. The builder had an office, we had a lawyer, but obviously not the right lawyer.
We thought we'd got an honest builder, a German man, who seemed very nice. We got a lawyer that was telling us when we should pay the money, because we didn't ever pay out any money without consulting the lawyer and saying, is this right? And every time they came back and said, yes, pay it. There was quite a period, about a year or so, when we had completely abandoned hope, and that was when Ignacio came on board. And then he said, I can get it back for you, where there's a possibility, quite a good possibility, of going after the banks, because he had done previous cases, similar cases, and been successful.
Once you prove the bank knew there was development, once you prove the money from the buyers went through the special client account, and once you prove the builder was in breach of contract, nowadays there is enough doctrine that confirms that the buyers should get their money back, especially now if the bank was negligent. So the bank was held responsible for not protecting the buyers with a bank guarantee. So the bank had to pay back all the principal money, all the interest, and legal fees in these cases, in some of the cases.
Today is the story, because they're all here and very happy, because I've got most of the money back, thanks to Ignacio from Pellicer and Heredia.
We've been fighting cases like this one from 2008, and we've been very, very successful once we filter the case. I run through a lot of situations where I can see from bankruptcy procedures, from different complex, that people are not aware that they could ask for their money back.
We are very, very happy. I mean, we had given up on this money and now it's come back. It's like winning the lottery.
Okay, Ignacio. I mean, I remember that was a spectacular case, and at the end, well, they were very happy clients.
Yeah. That's very, very nice. That's the best you could take out of a court, isn't it, Pedro? It's just a good feeling of doing things, because it was amazing how it did happen. The builder was in jail. They lost all the money. There were probably 7 couples altogether. And there was not a lot of doctrine. That was December. I think we did lodge the claim on the 30th of December 2015, and the law was changing on the 1st of January 2016, and we weren't sure how the courts were going to react. So we tried to do it with the existing legislation that was very beneficial. After that, obviously, after the years, we did learn that they did keep it, even though with the new law, these kind of things that happened in the past. Thank God, Pedro, they kept all these paperwork. And thanks to David Edwards, that he gave us, he was somebody who knew everybody and all the couples, and they were in the UK. So you could imagine how difficult it was to arrange power of attorney, get all the paperwork in order, but thank God, Pedro, they had the paperwork in their files. Some of them, they were missing some information, which obviously affected to the claim. You cannot claim what you cannot prove. But now, every time I see this video and these people, I'm very, very happy for them, because I wish we could always do these things better, isn't it? I think it is very rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, of course, and this links what it was said by Michael at the beginning. Is extremely important. I mean, of course, this couple, they signed a contract with a builder, with a developer. They had a lawyer that was saying to them, pay this money to the builder. And at the end, I mean, of course, because they fall in love with this property, at the end, it is supposed that they did things by the book, but probably, I mean, they didn't. Why? I mean, the lawyer was not totally correct. They didn't give any guarantee on the payment they did. So as Michael said, it's extremely important at the end to work with an independent and an experienced lawyer, abogado, in order to have everything at the beginning totally guaranteed and safe. And at the end, this specific case was fantastic, and at the end they were very successful. And I assume, and I know personally, it was because you were very, very efficient, and you were very pushing, of course, the other parties in the bank, and extremely important the court hearing that I remember it was.
Yeah, I had. Sometimes these things happen, Pedro. They came for the very last minute. They had a lot of paperwork. We couldn't guarantee anything, obviously. There were most of them, except one couple, they were in the UK. We, as we said, signed the contract, informed them that we could lose, and what happens if you lose, and what are the costs. And thank God they really said, let's go for it. They trust us. We trust that we could help them. And it's very rewarding, Pedro, that they are well, we got most of their money back, and they're happy, and we're very happy.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, I think we are with a few minutes. At the end, we will show another video if it's possible, but just to finalize, I will just say that Spain is a consolidated democracy and shows high levels of quality of justice. However, Spain currently suffers from low levels of satisfactions. I mean, one of the probably reasons is because of delayment in some ways, and probably in some ways it's not specifically transparently explained to clients. It's highly recommended to those who don't even speak Spanish to be specifically informed about how the system works and what documents or what really is the argument and what really is the defense or the claim that someone is starting. Okay, well, we have spoken about some topics about court fees, and we have said about some specific cases, about the different steps of to start with a note of court claim, about criminal cases, and what in a similar way how it works in a civil case. And of course, I personally, and I trust on justice. I trust on the access to justice. I mean, everyone has an equal guarantee to access to the courts. So everyone who understands needs to prove or needs to claim or needs to show in order to be declared something injustice should use the justice as is a guarantee system, even though, of course, there are some ways that should be taken into consideration by the administration for the efficiency and some ways for the delayment, I would say. impartially about judges is a guarantee, and its independence. At the end is what we said at the beginning, is extremely important to, if you are buying a property or anything that you're doing in Spain, just to instruct, of course, an independent lawyer, an independent barrister, and in order to, at the end, to prevent, and this is what my latest recommendation is, to prevent, of course, we don't recommend to, at the end, just to go to litigation. We recommend to prevent, to instruct, to prevent, and have everything done by the book in order to not to have access to the court. Okay, well, Ignacio, would you like to say something to finalize?
Well, no, thank you, Pedro, very much. I will highly recommend always people to seek independent advice, as you said. Try to do it by the book, and try to, that way you solve problems out. As in different topics, for example, like in the tax, people do the tax planning. Here is very good when people prevent, for example, buying a property in Spain, try to do due diligence, use an independent lawyer, try to use one who protects your interests, solely your interests, and then try to avoid court case. But in a worst case scenario, Pedro, if we end up in court, try to learn and know all the ins and outs, because as long as you know, there is no deception on a possible scenario. It's just a situation. But yes, Pedro, thank you very much for inviting me today on today's, I think, 24th webinar. And Pedro, over to you. A pleasure again.
Well, thank you, Ignacio, and thank you for all whoever is joining us and listening to us. Thank you for all of them. We will have another informative seminar next week on Thursday. I presume it's on Thursday at 6 o'clock, as always. Sometimes we do it on Friday, but of course we will be informing in our web. And thank you everyone for listening to us. And we're going to show at the end, I think, another video to finalize. And thank you everyone.
Yes, Pedro, I think I would like to say here, and then out of all here, we know a student that did ask for help. This is just Chloe. I would like to share with the audience the video of a student who really is a very good sport lady. She is seeking for sponsors. We did help her in some way, and she's looking for support. We would like to just share with you a video that we made for her, just to show the people what she did, and if is anybody willing to contact her and to support or any idea, she's more than welcome. So thank you for that. I will give it over to Juanfran. Thank you.